Bert, last time you were in here, we were talking about what was happening with Gerard Mayo, and the team was soft, and everyone was up in arms, and here we go. They go, and the Jets come into town, and they drive the field twice and end up winning that game. The Patriots do. And what is the mood like, are you hearing, with the Patriots right now?
Well, I think it's in a better place than it was a week ago, obviously. And, I think what the game against the Jets shows is that the team had his back. That was an adverse spot to be in. To come back off a trip from London, you guys remember, like, it used to be that it was automatic that you would have a bye after making the trip from London. So they make the trip from London, no bye, and come back. And after not only did Gerard Mayo call them soft in the media, he called them soft to their faces right before he went up and stood up there at the podium, and to get the response that he did, I think shows the team's still behind Gerard Mayo. And I think these are all tests for, first-year coaches, guys who've never been in those positions before, is, when you do these things, when you stick your neck out, when, you misspeak or you say something bold or different, something that creates headlines like this did, how's the team going to come out and look the next time around? And I think they did show their toughness in that game. I think both mentally and physically you saw that. And in particular, I got in a big argument with Beadle over this yesterday, but I really think the play call at the very end, when you could not have called a more simple play than what they did, where it was just line up and hat on a hat, we're going to push the ball over the goal line on fourth down, and they were able to get that done. So I think there's a lot of positive to come from it. We talked about style of play and how you could see, Dan Campbell, for example, the style of play even when they were really bad in Detroit.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan, you could see style of play. And with the Niners when they were 0-9 or 0-10 in 2017, I think you can see style of play here. And I do think to some degree it reset them a little bit and got them back to what they were trying to be at the beginning of the season.
So that brings up a point that we touched on a little bit, but style of play for the Patriots with Jacoby Brissett in a quarterback as opposed to Drake May. They fundamentally change anything? Was there fewer plays that they were running? Were they doing anything differently? Because it certainly looks different, but I was wondering, all right, this appears to be a little more effective.
I don't know
the way they were doing it, and the defense played better too, which helps.
Full disclosure, I haven't looked at the shotgun versus under center stuff, but it does seem like they were probably in the shotgun more when May was in there, and that's a product of doing things to make him feel more comfortable. They have concepts in Alex Van Pelt's offense that cross over with what Drake did in North Carolina. You're obviously going to lean a little bit more into that, but I think part of it too is being able to keep the score under control, being able to keep down and distance under control, and it's easy to say we're going to run the ball and be a physical team and all of that until you're in third and long, until you're down by 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, then you can't be that anymore. So a big product of this is just simple game management too. And I think there have been times this year when they've gotten away from it, when it was really maybe a product of the type of game they were playing in, where they fell behind or they're in bad down and distance. They can't block the defensive front of the other team, that sort of stuff.
All right. So you were talking on Amazon yesterday about the importance of ownership. I think that what you were getting at, and you had made a point earlier in the week that ownership can't necessarily win you games, but it can certainly lose them. If I'm quoting you correctly, what are bad owners doing wrong? Why do owners make teams bad? There's obviously guys in Carolina or Dan Snyder, but what about owners that you don't hear a lot about?
It was funny when because when I tweeted that, everybody I knew this was going to happen, which is part of why I did it. That about like 12 fan bases jumped on and immediately thought I was talking about their team, which sort of tells you where it is.
Yeah.
I do think that there's like a third base element to this, right? Like a born on third base element where, and I'm not saying the individual owners work because there are a lot of guys who've made their own money. But like the NFL is a very profitable enterprise, and these guys are making hundreds of millions of dollars before they lift a finger and make any of it on their own, right? So before you sell a ticket or sell a local sponsorship or any of that separate stuff, like the NFL is literally handing you a check, and you have nothing to do with that, really. You know, like you're not a genius. Like football on TV is football on TV.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these guys have this idea that they're all like, not only are they titans of their own industry, they're titans of, the sports industry, and they've earned the right to have their hands in everything. And the reality is, it's a very different business, and it's run differently than what a lot of these guys are used to. And you see where these guys step in potholes. And I think one of the primary things that you see like across the board in owners trying to get too involved is like, who are they talking to and who are they listening to? Like, I remember hearing this story, and I think Jimmy Haslam's gotten better with this, but like, I remember hearing this story about Jimmy Haslam early in his time in Cleveland, which was over 10 years ago now. And he would like go to the assistant offensive line coach and ask him what was going on. And then he would run it up to the head coach and go to him with it and think he was helping. Like, that doesn't help, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And so like we talked about this with Woody Johnson yesterday. He listens to so many people. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many non-football people in his ear. There are a lot of yes men around him. And then on top of that, he's really listening to what's going on the internet. There are other owners that listen to what's going on sports radio. And can you imagine, like, for an NFL head coach or a general manager who's trying to build their program, and they're legitimately like at the mercy of an owner who is coming to you with questions that were asked at like 1:30 on the local sports radio station, or that he saw from some idiot on Twitter.
Right.
I mean, like, and that's, like, that's where these things can really, like, that's where uneasiness festers. Like, that's why, like, people in the Jets building feel like Woody Johnson is so unpredictable. It's like, I like that the solid thing, and like, and you guys know I've got a relationship with Robert, but like, I'm not saying like his record put him in peril. Like, that's the reason he was in the situation he was in, where his job was in jeopardy, right? So I'm not arguing that. But the players in that locker room had a legitimate question, right? Which was, what does this accomplish? Okay, and if you think about it, like, well, what does it accomplish? Well, all right, so the strength of the team's the defense. You're pulling the architect of the defense out of the equation. You're taking a good defensive coordinator now and spreading him thin because he's got to learn how to become a head coach on the fly. And you're making the change on offense simultaneously. How is that going to make us a better team? Or are you just looking to go and get your pound of flesh because you heard some people complaining on Twitter about the state of the team when they were 2-3, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, does that help anything? Did he make the team better by firing Robert Saleh? No, right? Like, they got no spark. They're worse off for it. So, like, it's an example of. And then, Woody hears it on Twitter and then goes to his crew of yes men who just want to make him happy and, like, gets affirmation there, does what he wanted to do in the first place, and screws the team up. And, oh, by the way, on the back end of that, now everybody in the building, well, we have an unpredictable owner. I don't know what to I don't know what to expect day to day now. And, like, I mean, I'd say that building over the last month has been toxic. And I think you saw it in the first half last night. And I don't know what happened at halftime, but like all of a sudden it was like, well, wait a minute. Like, Aaron Rodgers somehow put his foot in the ground and changed it.
But the scary thing for the Jets organization is I don't know that anything happened. I don't know that there was any, inspirational speech, or there was any, like,
it was throwing a ball up to Garrett Wilson on 3rd and 19.
That's it. It was finally
the kid make a play.
One of those magical sports moments where LeBron remembers he's LeBron, or in this case, Aaron Rodgers remember. Oh, wait a second. I'm still Aaron Rodgers a little bit, and I've got Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. I can make a couple of plays here, and if the defense did their job,
I mean,
That's
really,
what
it was
took to win that game.
Really, it
last
was
night.
2 plays.
2 plays.
Right?
Yeah.
2 plays in the defensive line.
So
their defensive line.
I don't know if there was
after C.J. Stroud, which was a huge
they had
part.
8 sacks.
I don't know if there was a moment of
clarity
clarity anywhere within that organization last night.
No, I mean, I think there's a good chance they go and lose to Arizona next week.
Okay, yeah, but I could also make the argument that
Arizona's good. Arizona's better than you think.
No, I know, and I could also make the argument that if the Jets had a kicker, they could be what would it be now 6-3? I mean,
so someone made that argument to me yesterday when I was vetting all my information on this, and I do get that, but like,
well, it's because it's true.
but
I mean,
you shouldn't
Zerline
but you shouldn't be in that situation against the Patriots.
No, you shouldn't be. In the Patriot game, I don't put that in. But in that Denver game, like sometimes you're going to struggle on the road, and you
But
need
you
your
should
kicker
be better than Denver.
I know, but you should. But if it's a close game, you have a veteran kicker that should be able to make a 50-yard field goal to win the game.
when you went and got Aaron Rodgers, you shouldn't be in a 10-9 game.
I know, but but games like that are going to happen. That come down to a field goal.
Right.
I mean, is Houston a decent team? I mean,
Houston's a good team. No,
if Houston has a kicker yesterday, I mean, the game's different too. He missed missed a field goal. Did he mix an extra point?
And I understand what you're saying. I mean, I also would
don't really believe that, but I mean, I could see the.
I also would say you could probably pick those games apart and find little things the other team did where it's like, oh yeah, well if they had done
the Patriots game certainly
then maybe they would have won by 2 scores, right?
No, the Patriots game certainly. If the Patriots could hang on to the ball and they didn't have stupid penalties, yes, the Patriots could have won that game.
And that's
by a lot.
that's where like the idiocy of the Patriots argument that they could be at 5 wins or whatever is. I mean, it's asinine. It's like you're seeing this team with a rookie quarterback and a first-year head coach. Like you're presuming that everything was going to go right. Like you should build in that things are going to go wrong.
Okay, so let's talk about the rookie quarterbacks and where Drake May falls in. It is interesting because Bo Nix, I guess, has started to play better because Denver's winning.
I wouldn't go overboard with that, but he has gotten better. Yeah.
Right, but he played so much college football. I heard a thing.
Jayden Daniels played almost as much. They're right there.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that I've been hearing this there's because it was in reference to Anthony Richardson that there's like this minimum of college football starts that a quarterback you draft should have.
I have a chart. Like actually, like that I could show you guys in the break. I don't know if I can.
You don't need to get specific.
But the number I've heard is 25 is minimum.
Okay, so 25 is the minimum, and so I'll just ask you with Richardson, and then we can fold May into this. With Richardson, I was actually talking about this with John off the air. So you start Richardson as a rookie, plays all right, he gets hurt. You start him this year, he's terrible completion percentage. But he hasn't played any football. Like, how many starts did he have at Florida? Do you remember? Like
13.
13, right?
Yeah.
So not even like an NFL season's worth of starts. You would think at this point he needs to play.
So honestly that's the Trey Lance conundrum, right? Like I think it's the Trey Lance. Like I think it's Trey Lance and Anthony Richardson are the same this way. I'm not saying Anthony Richardson is going to wind up like Trey Lance, but the problem you have is, and we've talked about this with the Patriots. Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Quentin Nelson, DeForest Buckner, those guys don't care about your 3-year plan. Those guys don't care about like who the quarterback is in 2026. Those guys care about winning and performing individually and being in position to make more money right now. And the fastest way to lose a locker room is to give them a bad answer at that question, at that position. So it sounds good. It sounds good to say, okay, we're going to take this year and throw it completely overboard.
But Bert, with Richardson, why wouldn't you not start him his rookie year and let him learn? No.
Hurt.
Why would you not start him? Like, why would the plan not to have been to not start him? Like, I'm saying they should have not started him his rookie year.
Oh, you
play him this year. So, because like once you bench a kid,
it's hard to go back.
It's hard to go back, and I've heard ex-coaches say that.
Yeah,
Mac Jones.
I probably can't talk about this as eloquently as like a quarterback guru could, but there are certain guys that come into the NFL where you hear they need to sit, and generally it means that they need to be rebuilt fundamentally in some way. Like Drake was one of those. Jordan Love coming in was one of those. where it's like there's fundamentally a few things that they need to fix before you want to throw them out there, because you don't want them perpetuating bad habits. And then there are other guys where it's like, no, fundamentally they're okay, but they just haven't seen enough. And like the advantage of being like a Bo Nix with 61 college starts or a Jayden Daniels with 55 college starts is the volume of stuff you've seen in your head. Even if it's a college defense, you've looked across the line and you've seen this so many times and you've come up with so many different answers, and like you just have a different level of a different level of processing ability if you've seen that much more than the next guy has. And the premise with an Anthony Richardson or a Trey Lance is they just haven't seen enough, and they need that library built up. And so you've got to get them out there, and you have to let them make their mistakes. Justin Fields was one of these where it's like he just has to keep seeing it and seeing it and seeing it, because the only way he's ever going to be able to see the field faster is if you give him the opportunity to build the library in his head, so these things become reflex.
Will there become a point where teams are, and especially with NIL money and everything, that teams are going to be like hesitant to draft a kid that hasn't played more college football? Like,
so I think that was like, yeah, I mean, I think that's the effect of Brock Purdy having the success that he did, was like that's when you really started to hear the reps thing come up a lot, because Brock Purdy played a lot at Iowa State. I think he had over 40 starts in college, 4-year starter, and played on teams that weren't great there, right? Like, so he had to be the best player in the field pretty consistently. Brees Hall was there too, but those two guys had to carry the team, so he had seen a lot. I think it's become more and more of a factor now. And, like there was a huge divide between 3 of the guys and the other 3 of the guys, where you had 3-year college guys, and Caleb, Drake, and JJ McCarthy. And all 3 of those guys came out after 3 years. And then the other 3, Penix, Jayden, and Bo Nix, all had been multi-year starters at 2 different schools and 2 different major conferences.
Purdy, by the way, 48.
48, yeah. So like he was the one, though. And if you compare it and you look like Alex Smith is a great example. So Alex Smith didn't have a lot of reps throwing the ball at Utah. Like they ran like an option offense there. So he had played, but like he hadn't seen a ton in the passing game. And so it took a long time. It took him time to develop that library. Like he was seen as a bust for the first 4 years of his career. And then all of a sudden, like you get down the line and now he looks pretty good because he's built that library up. It's an interesting thing, and I think it's an important thing, and it's something that's a huge advantage that somebody like Jayden Daniels has. Like Jayden Daniels has seen a lot of things. He's been able to like not only succeed, he's been able to fail. People talk about the guys that he played with at LSU, which is fair, right? He had 2 first-round picks at receiver and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. He had probably 2 first-round tackles, these kids who are coming out this year. But before that, he played at Arizona State. And he was in like a little bit of a dumpster fire situation, if you remember, with them getting put on probation and all of that. So, like, even that, like, he's seen a lot. Like, because he's seen the game in different contexts.
You wonder how helpful it's going to be for Jayden Daniels, too, to have a game where he plays poorly like he did against Chicago and then ultimately win the game just because he's able to,
recall that.
Yeah.
There's a recall.
Yeah. Have that, like, mental picture in his head and say, I don't know if it's going to necessarily result in a win, but in terms of your overall attitude and the way you approach a game, the way you handle it mentally,
spin into a ditch.
Yeah, you've got a nice little mental picture there of how things can happen and change instantly, so you don't get too down on yourself in a game when you're playing poorly.
Bo Nix, like great example, like fell on his face at Auburn, and he was like a legacy there. His dad was a starting quarterback on an undefeated Auburn team, like just collapsed at the end at Auburn. No one thought he could play. And then he goes to Oregon, and they have a couple of great years, but he still has, like you said, that recall to look back at, like, okay, like I remember what it was like when I fell on my face, versus somebody like Caleb Williams, who like did a nice job of compartmentalizing on Sunday, but like he always was on the team with the best players. J.J.
Yes.
McCarthy was always on the team. Like
Right.
90% of the games that J.J. McCarthy started, roll the balls out, we win. Same thing, Justin Fields, another one, like played at Georgia and Ohio State. Like how many games was he in where his teammates weren't vastly superior to the
Caleb
other
Williams, his last year at USC wasn't particularly
that's-
good.
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
so-
thing.
all right.
That's
But he
he
gets
wasn't
that-
good at all,
yeah, right.
and he had close to 40 games as a starter.
All
So,
right.
I mean,
It is true. All right. So, well, listen, we can get into where Drake May fits into all these things.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.